All set? Good. Okay. We'll call a council meeting to order. I want to open with wishes of a very joyous Saint-Jean-Baptiste Day for all of our francophone community. La communauté francophone de Maillardville célèbre, comme beaucoup de notre pays francophone, la fête de Saint-Jean-Baptiste. It is truly a provincial holiday in Quebec, so they wouldn't have a council meeting tonight, but we don't do it that far, but we certainly do celebrate with the francophone community. Going on to the agenda.
Thank you, Richard. First item are minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, June 17th. The recommendation is that council approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Cookie in my mouth.
Item 2 are minutes of the sports council meeting held Wednesday, May 15th. Recommendation is that council receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Sikora. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 are meeting notes of the Universal Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting held Tuesday, June 4th. Recommendation is that council receive those minutes.
On the notes, Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Hodge. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
The following items relate to items on this evening's public hearing agenda. Item 4 is City of Coquitlam Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4389-2013 for 1388 Gabriola Drive. The recommendation is that council give second, third, and fourth and final reading to Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4389-2013.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Reid.
Just a couple of things. I'm going to approve this because I think to do anything else for the folks in Caliente Place is going to take quite a long time. But I'm asking the developers to do the best you can and make the turnaround something that everybody can use. And I'd also be very interested, we are giving this all readings, but I would really like to know from staff what it would cost to daylight that section that Ian had mentioned, and I would like to find that out if we could. Do you know that already?
No, we do not know that, but we can provide some
I think he said it's about 350 feet.
Meters.
Meters.
That's the total length.
Yeah.
He said he'd settle for less.
Yes.
He'd settle for less. Anyhow, maybe we could look into that, because I'd be interested in seeing what the impacts would be if we can do it while we're there and while we have a construction crew there, and you know, maybe we could work with the developer and get something done while the big equipment's on site. I don't know if we can or not, but it's something. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and one more thing, Your Worship. In the RS4 zone, there has to be separate parking pads for suites on site. On site. I hope we remember that. Thank you.
And not tandem. And not tandem with the existing required parking.
No, not by the driveway. It has to be separate on site.
Okay. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, this is certainly a property I've been familiar with over the years, and I used to walk through there, and I remember the old house that was there, the Molly Cooper home, so I'm familiar with the site. And I remember before I was on council taking another councillor down there and walking through this piece of property and saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could, you know, continue this walkway down the park up and continue this sort of parkway up along further, the one that already exists. And looking at the transition of this development, I see that this one looks very different from the first one, and I'm really pleased to see that extra green space that's there that wasn't in the original plan. And at the end of the day, it is going to be the same width that's down along the original part of Gabriola. So, you know, that extra portion that the developers put in and the city. And I think we heard from a number of residents both tonight and through various emails calling for more green space. And I think it was great to see that the city has stepped up and actually purchased some space as well. And used the dedication of parkland, because when a developer develops the land, they have the option of putting up in land or in cash. And here I was very pleased to see that the city is proposing to use that in this community, right in the neighborhood where it comes from. So we're getting the 5% that would be put up that could be used anywhere in the city. It's going to be used in this neighborhood. We're buying additional, and the developer is putting up additional land. And I think that, I think it was Ian who said, it's a very important piece of property, and it is. And to be able to actually keep 50% of it through park dedication and SPIA, I think is a good step forward from where we could have been several years ago. So I'm really happy to see that. Traffic and parking are always a concern for me in any development. And I'm happy to see that we're going to, in time, address the problem at Gabriola and Pipeline. I think that's a problem today, and even coming out after sports events, that traffic backs up. So I think this is an opportunity to address an existing problem. That pathway, that crosswalk, connects a community to our parks, so people are using it now. It's already busy, and it's going to become busier when we put more homes in there. So I really strongly believe we have to take care in that pedestrian crossing. The daylighting of where the pipe is interesting. I know I sort of threw it out there during the first reading. I'd be curious to know how much it would cost, if it's something that might qualify for a compensation project down the road, that we're sometimes looking for doing, fisheries compensation. That might be something we could look at. But I would also want to know if by putting that in there, that's a trail and a walkway. And I would be concerned that if we were to dedicate that and daylight that, would we then have setbacks around it that might preclude people from using that? So it's maybe something we really want. I like the idea, but that is a very popular trail, and I'd want to make sure that it's wide enough that we could do this and not encumber the future walkways. I see, Jim, I don't know if you wanted to.
Mr. McIntyre. If I could, Your Worship, thank you. As I said, being familiar with that area, though it's been a few years since I've been down there with my bike, it is basically it's a road that goes through, a gravel road that goes through the forest right now. There's also a BC Hydro power line on the one side, too. There's, I guess, the large storm sewer pipe there. Certainly, we'll go back at Council's direction and look at at a very high level what the feasibility and cost of that might be. A couple of thoughts. So I don't believe there was originally a water course there. I think it was a storm sewer outfall. So you're opening up that, creating that to be an open channel system. I guess my only hesitation would be, given that there isn't a lot of width there, depending on the depth you need to go to, it could be, kind of a deep, steep-sided, potentially unsafe sort of channel. But we'll look into that and we'll communicate back to Council. I
agree with Councillor. I think there's an opportunity, if it can be done, there's an opportunity to do it while we're doing work in the area, and I'd certainly like to look at that possibility up front. As I say, I'm happy to see that there's been improvements. No plan is perfect, but I'm happy to see that we have done a lot in the area of the creek side, the river side, and park area in that project. So thank you for the work that staff have done on that so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The one thing what's happening in here, that it's not 38 homes, it's 76. 76 residential units. Might as well be, because they're all going to have basement suites. It's it's unfortunate that we can't expropriate, we should expropriate that wall, a certain part of that wall, to get the streets put in properly. I know that the wall was put in there when I was the mayor, and of course at that time I could not stop him from pouring that wall, because our solicitor said, don't touch that one, stay away from it, because he's within his rights. But now when houses are being built and a few other things, we need wider streets. We need to do something about it, so we need to expropriate that wall. To me, the one thing with one of the speakers, I resent the comments that she made, that somehow, the developer contributed to everybody's campaign. What a joke. I mean, that is really insulting, to say the least. is the fact is that, you know what, I voted against BD's development. He contributes to my campaign funds. I voted against Polygon, contributes to my campaign. I vote for different things and different things that I don't. You know what, to me, somehow if for 1 minute, I don't think there'd be any council member take any money of anybody if it was tied to that you're going to support their development. I mean, it's ridiculous to make those kind of comments. So, Mayor, I will not be supporting this project. I think that, you know what, we need to expropriate the wall, put some streets in properly, and I cannot support 76 units in there because the traffic is going to be too much. Thank you very much.
We can't.
Councilor Sikora, all of our zones have, okay, anyway. Okay.
We can't. Maybe
It's
ask Raul.
38.
Your Worship.
Well, we can't actually ask Raul whether we can expropriate because he'd be quoting legal opinions that we can't receive in any case. I think we're kind of stuck here in that if we could have expropriated, we probably would have back when, long before I was mayor, when someone else was mayor. He probably would have done it.
Well, it
But,
wasn't necessary then, but now it is.
Well, it was necessary when they built the houses.
When they built the
on
houses,
Caliente.
yeah. Okay. It is an unusual situation, and if we could have corrected it, undoubtedly we would have. But for reasons I can't talk about, we can't correct it. Councillor O'Neill.
Careful, Mayor Wilson.
Thank you very much. Generally speaking, here we're dealing with rezoning application, looking at what we think is this good land use or not. And generally speaking, good land use. I think that it is a good land use. But specifically on the issue of Caliente Place, of course, we have the issue about the wall and the constrained access, which is a bad situation, no doubt. But will the addition of 3 lots and 3 homes at the end of Caliente Place make a bad situation significantly worse or even worse? Actually, I think the argument can be made that with the addition of a 3-point turnaround as planned at the end of Caliente Place, the addition of those 3 lots will make the bad situation slightly better. Still not a good situation, slightly better. So to my mind, that was one of the bigger obstacles, bigger concerns in looking at this issue and in the rezoning. And I'm satisfied that the developer is doing all that it can do, and I think it is good land use. On some of the other issues, I think what we've heard tonight and seen represented in the process that brought us to tonight was some of the sort of very best in development practices, working with the city, working with the community to increase the green space, to decrease the number of lots that would have otherwise been allowable there, to look at the traffic considerations. All of these sorts of things have been done, and I'm persuaded that that these are all good things that have been done, and that this will be a good development and good land use. One of the opponents who spoke tonight talked about the impact on the neighborhood, and it's a great family community. And I have no doubt that it is. I've been in the community, and I've ridden my bike and been on the trails around there as well, and it's a wonderful, warm community. But my response when I hear about somebody opposing a development like this, a responsible development, and saying it's to protect the great family community, is to think about all the other families that will be deprived of living in that great family community if we turn this down. And I think it will still be a great family community, but if this development goes through, but a great family community that's open to even more families, for more people to enjoy. And if we don't allow this development, if we turn down the rezoning, it's going to have, of course, the impact of making family homes that much more expensive because of a limited supply in the rest of the municipality. So I think this is a good use of this land. It represents a positive changes as the months have gone by, as the developers responded the city is concerned, the community is concerned. I also think this daylighting of, well, actually, I guess daylighting would be a misnomer. If it was never a stream to begin with, we're not really daylighting anything. We would be creating an artificial man-made stream, apparently. So not really daylighting everything. I think that's a bit of a, for tonight, a bit of a red herring. Perhaps it's something we will want to do in the future to create an artificial stream, but in order to perhaps trade off on some obligation or somewhere else, and it's something we could look at then, but I think it's way too early to look at this, and it would be undoubtedly pretty expensive to create a stream along this area right now. And it would have an impact, I would say, somebody suggested that as well, with if you do create a fish-bearing stream, then all of a sudden you lose a lot of usable space along the sides of it as well. Right now it's a well-used public amenity, and I'd like to see, like that to keep that way. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. The Caliente place is, as everyone has said, an unusual situation. Long before I was on council, I did consulting work with planners and other building officials from around the country, and whenever they came to this community and wanted a tour, they invariably asked to see the wall. And so I've been to that wall a couple of hundred times, typically with a planner in the passenger seat of the car, and they all stopped and took out their camera and took a picture because they saw the wall. It is an odd reality that half of the road, typically when you develop property, half of the road is on the one property. The road typically goes down the property line, and the other developed property provides the other half of the road. In this case, the other developed property, or potentially developed property, opted not to be developed and opted so to express that quite aggressively with a wall, and so we ended up with this situation. It's unfortunate, but there's not much we can do about it. They were within their right to do it, and the creation of 3 additional lots, I agree, doesn't make it any worse. I suspect it makes it actually better, because one of the challenges is you don't have any opportunity to turn around other than pulling into one of the driveways of the people that live in that very narrow roadway. So I'm not as concerned about that. I think we'd end up with a turnaround at the end, and ultimately I suspect someday someone will tear down the wall, and east will meet west, actually north will meet south, and we'll have a properly completed road. And that completed road actually extends on the other side. We're going to complete roads on the other side of David. We're going to complete a road network that right now has a whole bunch of extra traffic passing in front of Nestor Elementary. And I've been there during morning drop-off and afternoon drop-off, and there's no way out of the neighborhood, and there's incredible congestion. And completing the road network in a neighborhood that was planned a couple of decades ago, I think is an important achievement of this plan as well. Completing the intersection of Gabriola and Pipeline, I think that light will benefit the parents dropping off students. They'll benefit the neighborhood in general. And in the end, it'll complete the neighborhood. This was planned. I heard the same comments that this will wreck the neighborhood. Well, this actually was all planned. The neighborhood was all planned, and if the person that said that, if their road hadn't been developed, they wouldn't live there, and someone would be saying, well, we shouldn't let them into this neighborhood. And I think that's wrong. We've always had that sort of situation, though, where phase 2 is against phase 1 is against phase 2. This will complete the river's edge. This will allow that we protect the river properly up to David. We still have work to do to protect it properly south of this project, and I think we'll be able to do that. It'll complete the trails. It'll connect some of those trails, and in the end, it'll do all that with more than half of the land being made into park. I've never been to a project this size where more than half the land ended up as parkland, and that parkland and protected areas is something we don't have in high enough supply. I recognize lots of people would say, why couldn't we just buy the whole parcel? As a city, we do have to be careful the types of properties we invest in, and I suspect that the portions of this property that are being developed ought to be developed. They were planned to be developed 20 and 30 years ago, and the time has come to complete that neighborhood, those streets, and I'm going to support the plan as presented. Any further discussion? The motion is second, third, and fourth. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed. The motion carries. You were just opposed because of the wall. Okay, right. Okay.
Item 5, Citywide Official Community Plan, Bylaw number 4391-2013, the proposed Partington Creek Neighbourhood Plan. The recommendation is that Council give second and third readings to Citywide Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4391-2013.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Sikora. All in favor? All opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and I will say unanimously, and with the deep thanks of Council for all of the work that staff have done on a long stretch of project, and all of those who've put in their contributions to this, what I think will be an outstanding neighborhood.
Item 6 has been pulled from the agenda, so we're moving on to item 7, which is Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4393-2013. It's a text amendment to the RM apartment zones and the C7 Transit Village Commercial Zone. The recommendation is that Council give second, third, and fourth and final readings to Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4393-2013.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. On the apartment zones, what's the ratio in parking?
This isn't to do with that.
Is that nothing? We're not changing any of that.
Not changing any of
So
that.
it's still 130?
This has nothing to do with the parking.
This has nothing to do with parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, okay. So, any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
That concludes the items on this evening's agenda.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson to adjourn, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll now have a question period on tonight's agenda. Any items on tonight's agenda? Any questions on tonight's agenda? Any questions? Any questions from the audience on tonight's agenda? Sir, please come forward.
Now that the zoning for the Gabriola property is passed, am I able to speak?
Name and address again, sorry.
Okay, sure. Ian MacArthur, 940 Stanton Avenue in Coquitlam.
Thank you very much.
Just a question on the daylighting of, or the possible feasibility of daylighting. I was thinking that also it didn't have to be a fish-bearing stream. The main idea of daylighting it is to try and filter out the water before it goes into the Coquitlam River. So it doesn't mean that fish have to come up it. It means it's just that the amount of grass clippings, oil, all kinds of stuff that comes down that and goes straight into the Coquitlam River is absolutely disgusting. Plastic bags, everything comes down it. And so if we could have some sort of biofiltration or whatever in a section along that to filter out before it goes into the river, that'd be beneficial to the river, but it doesn't have to be fish bearing. All right, thanks.
Okay. Do you have a... I should have been clear. That's question period.
The question is, council consider that.
Yes, that would be the question.
I have to question it?
If you
okay.
So something like,
boy, oh boy.
Do you understand? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. It has to be in the form of a question. Okay, thank you.
We'll make sure we insist that. Yes. Yes. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you all for coming.